Hello, I am JTK.ca, and that is a noisy bird behind me, if you can hear it. Anyway, thanks to all my Facebook and other other social media friends for praying for me. I've been not feeling well, but I'm feeling a lot better at the moment. At the moment, I'm not going to say I'm completely better, but I feel so good. I'm walking to Walmart. It's like 2.2 kilometers from my place. So anyway, I thought about doing Facebook Live, but I'm just gonna record this now and maybe post it later. So anyway, might as well tell you a little about myself, since I've got a long walk. My name is Jonathan Tad KETCHEN. My dad was a Presbyterian pastor, and when he was in seminary, one of his classmates and best friends was from Japan, and his name was Tadataka. They called him Tad for short. And Mom and Dad named my middle name after him. So I'm Jonathan Tad KETCHEN. But Mom said that if she had known that I was going to become an artist and a poet like I did, they would have named me Jonathan Tadataka KETCHEN. That's Tadataka. So that'd be fun. But I like Tad because it can't be shortened, because I grew up as Jonathan, but my middle name caught on in college and sort of stuck. So I'm Tad a lot of places, and I'm Jonathan a lot of places. Jonathan Tad KETCHEN. And my main, I own 5 different domain names, and they all lead to my, at the moment, they all lead to my one website. And my actual website is nudistpoet.com. And the other, my other domain names that lead to it are what I use as my pen name, jtk.ca. And .ca is a Canadian domain name ending. So it's not .com, it's .ca. jtk.ca. And I make that stand for Jonathan Tad KETCHEN, Creative Adventurer. And nudecreations.com. That shows all my nude work. And nudistpoet.com is, like I said, that's my website. And tadcreations.com, as in my middle name, Tad, as in tadpole. I often introduce myself, I'm Tad, as in tadpole. That way I don't get Todd or Ted given back to me. So tadcreations.com. That's the first domain name I ever registered. And then my latest domain name is nakedenthusiasts.com. And I started a Facebook group which got up to about just under 3,000 members. And Facebook has so much censorship that it got annoying. So now actually it just nakedenthusiast.com forwards to nudistpoet.com like all the others do. And so I know I explain too much. It's just the way it is. Okay, both my parents have passed away, but they lived here in Guelph. They lived like basically at the same major intersection as Walmart is at. So I'm quite used to walking this route when I walk, but I usually take the bus. But it's Sunday and the buses don't run that early on Sunday, so I thought it would be a good excuse to force myself out of my temple of doom, and see the real world for a bit. It's kind of nice having this background behind me. And I've got the phone on it's not a tripod, it's a monopod. It's like before the selfie sticks existed, there were still monopods. It's a monopod. It's just one leg. So anyway, back to my life story. I'm sure many of you are tuning out right now. That's fine. But like I said, both my parents have passed away within the last few years, and but up until then, I would go to their place for supper every night. So now I'm feeding myself. But they left even though they're gone, they left a trust fund for me so that it takes care of the food. So I'm very thankful for that. My work life, in the past, I have, oh, by the way, guess my age. Okay. I'm guessing you guessed low. People usually do. I'm 55. But I managed to retire in 2004 when I was 36 years old. But don't be jealous. It's due to my mental health issues. I have severe obsessive compulsive disorder, and the severe OCD kept killing my jobs. So I finally decided to stop torturing myself and go on the disability pensions. And then the trust fund that my parents left me, it's worked out with them that like when Mom's estate was split up between me and my two brothers, Michael and Stephen, the three of us, they each got 1/3 of the estate. So Mike got 1/3, Steve got 1/3, and I got 1/3. But my third wasn't all at once. Mine is put into what's called a Hansen Trust, Hansen, Hansen Trust. So my third of the estate is split up over several years, about 11 years, I think. So apparently it's going to run out in 2028, so I'll have to figure something else out. But and today is 2023, in case you're looking back at this. So I've got 5 more years to figure things out. 5 more years to figure things out. I'm just making sure I'm speaking loud enough for you to hear me, because this is going through my hearing aids. Yes, I just got fitted for my first set of hearing aids, so I'm officially old. But it is neat the way they work with the phone. And the lady who set them up for me did a really neat trick. She made it so that all I have to do is tap the home button 3 times fast, and it automatically brings up my hearing aid settings. So it's like I don't have to go through a big menu to get into it. I just go to the home button and go tap, 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 and up pops my hearing aid settings. It's really cool. And again, I'm recording this ahead of time, then I can play it back to my narcissistic self before I send it to you. But Dad was a preacher, and he hated listening to his own voice on tape, because no one's voice sounds the way they think it does, because they're hearing it from inside their own head. But I love the sound of my own voice, because, like I said, I'm a narcissist. And I've lived in my current apartment building, and I'm in Guelph, Ontario, Canada, which is, as the crow flies, like a straight line from Toronto to Guelph, is in a straight line is like about 71 kilometers, I think. I mean, people say it's 100 kilometers, but that's because you have to follow the roads. But anyway, Guelph is Guelph. And it's really funny when foreigners are conversing with me and they're trying to pronounce the name of my city. Guelph? What is that? So it's Guelph, Guelph, Ontario, Canada. And anyway, yeah, I've been in Guelph for 23 years. I've been in my current apartment 22 years. And my current apartment back in, I think it was 2012, my current apartment building was on fire back in 2012. So that was nice, getting woken up at 3 a.m. for that. But it's still there. And I feel totally safe in my apartment building because it's already been on fire. So anyway, one of the tenants was the arsonist. He decided it would be a good idea to light his apartment on fire. And so that was really nice for the rest of us. But the unit that was destroyed in the fire, I mean, the rest of the building was fine, but the unit that was destroyed, I've had several landlords and landladies over the years, but my original landlady, she said that that unit is now the nicest unit in the building because they had to rebuild it from scratch. But anyway, so when the first tenant moved back into the refurbished, rebuilt apartment unit, I was talking to her and we were just chatting away, and in the course of our conversation, she's moved into this, so she knows its history, that it used to be an inferno, but it's a beautiful apartment now. And so, because it was the person who lived there before had arsoned his own place. So anyway, so I was talking to this lady who had moved into the newly refurbished apartment, and in the course of conversation I said to her, "I'm a narcissist." And she said, "Oh no, not another one." And I laughed and said, No. I didn't say I was an arsonist. I said I'm a narcissist. Oh man, was she relieved. I love that memory. So, okay, so like I said, my dad was a pastor and went to seminary in Philadelphia, which is where mom and dad conceived me. But I was born in, and also I did the math and looked back, and I very well could have been. So I officially declare that I was conceived on April Fool's Day, 1967, because I was born on December 31st, 1967. So you go back 9 months, and it's only a day difference. So I was officially conceived in Philadelphia on April Fool's Day, 1967. And then I was born in when Dad had his first pastorate, his first church. Which was in Cranberry Portage, Manitoba, which was very, very cold. Northern Canada. It was, I think, 100 miles south of the tree line where trees stopped growing. Yeah, it was a little village called Cranberry Portage, but about 40 kilometers or 40 miles away was the city of Flin Flon, F-L-I-N, F-L-O-N. And Flin Flon, Manitoba, Canada. If you look it up, you'll see it's named after a fictional character named Flintabity Floniton. And there's a stat, and I think in the town square there, I haven't been there since I was 1 year old, so I don't know, but I think in the town square there's a statue of this fictional character, Flintabity Floniton. So anyway, I was born in Flin Flon, Manitoba on New Year's Eve, 1967, just a few hours before 1968, which was a curse because I was born just before midnight, and if I had been born just after midnight, I could have waited a whole other year to start school. So I had to start school a whole year earlier just because I was born just before midnight on New Year's. So I can still remember Mom and I standing in front of the school the day before school started. I can remember standing in front of the school and just crying. That was in Innerkip, Ontario, Canada. Dad's second pastorate. His first pastorate in Cranberry Portage near Flin Flon, Manitoba. That's where both Flin Flon was, where both me and my brother Michael were born. And Michael was born 11 months after me. And when Mom came in, the doctor said, "You're back already?" But like I said, they lived 100 miles south of the tree line, so they were cold. They had to keep warm somehow. But anyway, then yeah, I was 1 year old when we left Manitoba forever. And then Dad took a church in Innerkip, Ontario, which is in southern Ontario. It's near Woodstock, or if you don't know geography that well, it's in the sort of the London, Ontario area, but it's near Woodstock. And my brother Stephen James Ketchen, he keeps changing his name. It was Stephen James Ketchen. He grew up as Stephen, then he went by Steve for a while, and then Stephen J. Ketchen, and then for a while SJ, and now he's Stephen J. Ketchen again. Anyway, he was born in Woodstock, Ontario, when we lived in Innerkip, and Dad was at that church for about 4 years, and then he took a church in Sydney, Nova Scotia, on Cape Breton Island. Sydney, Nova Scotia, Canada, on Cape Breton Island, which is a beautiful place. Sydney wasn't beautiful at the time because it was the 1970s, and Sydney had a steel plant. And because Sydney had a steel plant, Sydney had pink sky, but the rest of Cape Breton was beautiful. But I don't think it has pink sky anymore because I think the steel mill is long gone, but I'm not sure. Yeah, so Dad took a church in Sydney, Nova Scotia, Canada, on Cape Breton Island, and 3 years into that, he bought a house in the I guess you could call it the suburbs of Sydney. It's a little village called Cox Heath, Coxheath, and my memories of Cox Heath are wonderful. We spent the last 6 years of our time there, so we were 9 years in the Sydney area. But he had the church the whole time there. But yeah, Cox Heath was wonderful. And then in 1982, when I was 14, Dad took a church in Duanesburg, New York, which is in the Albany area. And that was a beautiful place too. I have lots of great memories there. We were there Dad was there from 82 to 91. I was there from 82 to 90, and away a little bit during it because of college. But so anyway, so it was the three KETCHEN boys: Jonathan, Tad, Michael, David, and Stephen James. And while we were there in Waynesburg, New York, I went to Covenant College, Lookout Mountain, Georgia, the United States, Georgia, yeah, it was right on the border of Georgia and Tennessee. So Lookout Mountain overlooks Chattanooga, Tennessee. I had two wonderful, they were the best years of my life. Covenant College, Lookout Mountain, Georgia. The thing is, I enjoyed it too much, and that's why I left on academic suspension. But anyway, lots of great memories. It was a Christian college run by the Presbyterian Church in America. Still is. I look both ways all the way across the street because there are maniacs like that almost ran me down. Okay. Well, I'm at the corner for Walmart. Maybe when I get there, I'll sit down and finish the story rather than splitting it into two videos. Although I probably should split it because it's getting long. So anyway, we left off in Duanesburg, New York. We were there from most of the 80s and into the beginning of the 90s, but just the beginning. And then Dad took a church in Valparaiso, Indiana, which is near Chicago. And Mom, and my brothers, Michael and Stephen, they stayed behind in the Albany, New York area when Dad left. They've been there ever since. I don't see them that often. I only keep up with what's going on with them on social media. Yeah, Dad took a church in Valparaiso, Indiana, and I was out of Covenant College, but I went and worked in Toronto for a year, and after a year I got disillusioned about my life and wasn't sure where I was going. So I moved back in with my parents, but they had moved from the Duanesburg, New York, the Albany area, to Valparaiso, Indiana. So that's where I moved. After a year in Valparaiso of not finding a job and not really looking, I decided I might as well finish my degree because there's a university 3 miles down the road. So I eventually graduated from Valparaiso University in Valparaiso, Indiana, northwest Indiana near Chicago. And my major was, I got my Bachelor of Arts. My major was art with a graphic design concentration, and my individualized minor was theater and dance. Naturally, all that led to several janitorial jobs. Yes. And tons and tons and tons and tons of debt. Joyous. If I knew ahead of time, I wouldn't have done any of it. Covenant or Valparaiso University. I also did some time in. I'm gonna sit down. I also did some time in just getting where the sun's not in my eyes. I also did some time in Schenectady County Community College, which was, the upstate New York, the Duanesburg, Albany area. Schenectady County Community College. I spent a year and a half there. So, like before Valparaiso University. So with Covenant, SCCC, and VU, Valparaiso University, my 4-year degree took 7 years. My 4-year degree took 7 years and 3 schools. But I finally did it. Let's see. So we left Mom and Dad and I. When we were in Indiana, he continued to pastor until 1996, and in 95 he bought a house cleaning company, and from 96 through 98, Dad and I cleaned houses for a living, 6 days a week, about 12 hours a day, because there was the time between places. It was exhausting, but it was really interesting, because you get to see houses of all different kinds, and like from every strata of society, from poor to rich. So that was fun. And because of my severe OCD, we had it worked out so that I would do all the vacuuming and he would do everything else, because it took me the same amount of time to do all the vacuuming that it took him to do everything else. So, but it worked perfectly for me, and I love vacuuming. It's really a shame because I don't do it anymore, but anyway, so we did that for a couple of years, and then we moved back to Duanesburg, New York, to the exact same house, to the same church, same friends. So you can go home again. Just remember that. You can go home again. So that was wonderful. We went back for a little over a year. They called Dad to be interim pastor because they were between pastors at the time. So, and then near the end of the time we were there, Dad's stepmother, Ruth, had a stroke and was recovering, and so we went when we were done in Duanesburg, New York. We moved back to Ontario, Canada. We moved to Guelph, Ontario, Canada, where Ruth lived, and we moved in with her, and the dad, mom, and I, and I was there for the first 10 months, and then I got my own place, and I got my place where I am now, which I've been in for 22 years. I got it because Grandma Ruth, her best friend from church, lived in the building that I'm in now, and her and Ruth's friend's mother, Ruth's friend Linda lived in the building I'm in now, and Linda's daughter was the superintendent of the building. So that was my in to getting the building, because of one of my grandma's friends. So that was cool. It's often who you know. So take advantage of it whenever you get the chance. Yeah. And so I've been here 22 years. 23 years, but I've been in that apartment for 22 years. In 2004, at age 36, I managed to retire from the work world because of my OCD. I went on the disability pensions, and much happier now that I don't have, all the work issues in my life. I think I've 37 minutes. I think I've probably rambled long enough, but now you know me pretty well. If you're wondering about my website addresses, nudecreations.com and nudistpoet.com. Yes, I am a nudist, and I'm a nude model, exhibitionist. I'm an exhibitionist online, but I figured, names like nudecreations.com and nudistpoet.com give people fair warning, and if they come and are offended, well, my condolences for your brain injury. But the easiest way is my pen name and website address. I have several website addresses, but they all lead to the same place. So the easiest one to remember is jtk.ca. And I'll see you later, and nice getting to know me. Bye. Love you.